Hey, what's up? I'm Rafael de Furia, aka Rafi D is me, and I am back at it again on another beautiful Friday night. And this Friday is, I think, the final countdown to 10,000 subscribers. So just a quick pre-thank you to those of you who are subscribed, and especially to those of you who've been helping to make these videos possible. This week, I wanted to get into a little bit of the steps to take, the process that is necessary to look at when thinking about moving abroad. It's not just simply packing up your bags, getting onto that plane, and arriving. I've spoken a little bit more about the legal aspects of what are the legal options, not only for those of you who are of Italian descent, but for those of you who aren't of Italian descent. I will include a link down in the more info section below with more information about kind of at least some of the options to look at if you're wanting to come to Italy. This will be more kind of the steps to take in the process, just kind of my go-to list if I were to be doing this again. But before we get too much deeper into this video, if you would like to see more content like this about moving to Italy, just like this video, Italian dual citizenship, and living life abroad, please be sure to subscribe with that notification bell turned on. And if you could also give this video a like and share it with your friends, that would be greatly appreciated. It doesn't matter if you're going to be moving to Italy from the US or wherever, the steps will roughly be the same. It's just how you take care of them may be a little bit different in each place. I didn't come directly to Italy from the US. I took about a 8-year detour through a number of different countries before finally arriving here. But after a number of international and intercontinental moves, this is what I've learned from my experience that I wanted to share with those of you who are thinking about doing it maybe for the first time. Some of these tips may sound very basic, but I am really wanting to break this down as much as I can because I've received a number of messages asking specifically what would the steps be to get this whole ball rolling. And the first thing that I would say is the most important is to make sure you can afford to move abroad. You need to have a bit of a strategy, maybe a little bit of a game plan. Definitely, you want to have as much saved up on the side as possible before you even leave. You want to have enough for the movers, if you so choose to have movers moving your things. And at the very least, enough for at least a few months of rent for where you're going to be living next. You'll want to look at what the average cost of living is there. So take that into account, how much you'll be spending on food. Are you somebody who goes out? Or do you go partying a lot? Do you just stay home and watch a lot of Netflix? You'll want to find out what each one of those costs are. Tally them all up, including the normal rent for the area that you're looking into, as well as finding out what the rents are for that area. Don't just look at what the normal price range is for that area. Go on to websites that actually have listings and look at what's actually available, as well as real estate websites that offer rentals. Or if you're looking to buy, I would say don't buy yet, as I've been saying in my videos recently. Spend at least a couple years in a place before making that purchase. So once you've figured out what the total is that it's going to cost you per month for your apartment, electricity, gas, internet, and so on, just all the basic daily needs, as well as food, which is a very important one. You might not want to forget that one, but you'll also need to figure out how you want to get you and your stuff abroad. Are you wanting to just go with a couple of suitcases? Is that realistic? Or do you want to take maybe some of those items that you have that maybe was your grandmother's, great-great-grandmother's drawer set or shelves or bookcase, whatever it might be. You want to know what you're going to do with those items that you just can't get rid of. Are you only moving abroad for a little while, or are you going to be moving for much longer term? For some people, getting rid of everything and just moving abroad with a couple of suitcases can be a great way to start brand new. But that means you're starting off from square one, so you're going to have to repurchase everything from pots and pans and dishes and this and that. And sometimes some of these things can actually be worthwhile bringing with you. And if you have a lot of larger furniture that you want to take with you, you have to start comparing the price of taking that with you versus the cost of repurchasing everything, because there are times that definitely moving your stuff even intercontinentally from the west coast of the US even to Italy can cost less or right around the same amount as it would be to completely furnish an apartment or home, whatever it might be that you're looking for, all the way from nothing. But if you're moving to Italy, you also have to take into account that if you're wanting to move into a furnished apartment, that means it comes with just about everything. And if you're wanting to move into an unfurnished apartment, that means it doesn't come with anything, including in some places you won't even find a sink in the kitchen, let alone a countertop. For me, I have a few larger items that would be difficult to travel with. Like I have some musical instruments and I also have some camera gear and some larger, bulkier items. So there have been times where I have used an international mover because the cost of replacing was going to be far more than the cost of just keeping my things. And if you don't have a ton of stuff to bring with you, look for a company that can do a partial container. If you have a lot of larger, bulkier items that include maybe some furniture or just some large boxes, then you might want to look into somebody who can do shipping like a partial container, not a full container. Because if you have to do a full container that will be sent by sea, that will be ridiculously expensive. But if you can find someone who takes care of those partial containers, then you'll be saving so much money. And no, it is still not cheap, but it is still not ridiculously overly expensive. So definitely something worth to give a look into. In a past video, I did say there was a shipping company who I was able to recommend, but unfortunately, I'm no longer able to recommend them, even though I had great success with them, and I know other people who did. The people who asked me for their information ended up never hearing from them, and I've tried to contact them as well, and nobody ever got responses. So unfortunately, I'm not able to make that kind of recommendation anymore. But the next part could actually be done before this last step that I just mentioned, and is to know where you're wanting to move. Actually, that in theory should be done before the last step, and to really have a solid idea, at least of the general location you would like to be moving to. Ideally, it would be good if you could take a pilot trip out to that location to see what part of town you would like to live in if you've never visited before, or if the town that you're looking in is actually even the appropriate town. I know of people that will just purchase a property sight unseen in a town that they've never been to. I think it's absolutely the worst idea anybody could ever get themselves wrapped up into, and just no. I know there are people out there that would do such a thing, but I would say you do need to get your boots on the ground, to breathe the air, to experience the place, to see if there's the bakery, the type of bakery that you need for your daily things, or if you don't need a bakery, or if you need an electronics shop, or whatever it may be that is your thing. And along with finding a place is figuring out how you're going to support yourself. Are you going to be working online? And if you are going to be working online, I would definitely say try working that online job before you leave to make sure it's even appropriate. I have mentioned this in videos before, where if you are looking to move abroad and you're doing this whole new experience, living in this whole new place, you don't want to necessarily put yourself into a whole new job and into a whole different type of field. Like if it's teaching English online, for example, make sure you can like it first. Make sure that you're not throwing yourself into a new stressful situation with another stressful situation thrown on top of that. Or maybe it's data entry, or maybe you're lucky enough that the job that you're currently doing, that you will have some way of being able to make it a telecommuting job. You might be surprised. There are a lot of people that do work in offices that don't need to work in those offices. If you are really itching to get your life abroad and you really don't want to leave your job, and especially if you work at a desk, for example, think about realistically, try and put together a plan of what is it that you could actually accomplish at your job at home rather than actually being in the office. If you find that you could do a large portion of your job from home rather than the office, maybe your coworkers might not like this. Maybe your boss may not like this. But if you are considering to leave your job anyway, if you are ready to give your last notice, before you give your notice, maybe talk to them about seeing if it might be possible to work from home, because maybe you can figure something out that maybe you take a little reduction in pay, but that little reduction in pay would still be more than fine to help you in your new life in a new country. But see if you can do the job from home first before moving to the new place. And then once you're in Italy, there are a couple of things that you definitely need. One of them is a fiscal code, a codice fiscale. I have done a video about this before, and the link will also be down in the more info section below. It's very easy to get, especially if you're already here in Italy. You don't need to be a citizen, and you don't need to even have a visa to get one. But if you are planning to be in Italy, you do need to make sure that you are properly legal to live here. So another step that you really do need to take care of before you even arrive is to make sure how you are legally going to be here. So yes, of course, figuring out how you're going to be legal in the country is a big step. Of course, I've been talking about everything under the assumption that you've already figured out how you're going to get legally in the country. But like I said before, I have made a video on the subject of the various options that do exist for somebody who is of Italian descent or not of Italian descent. So link, of course, is down in the more info section below, and you can check that out after this video. But moving on from the codice fiscale and the visa or citizenship to actually be able to stay in Italy, bank account. That's going to be a big one. If you want to pay bills, if you want to pay for rent, it's going to be the easiest if you have a bank here. In the past, I have recommended N26 and PostPay. But if I were to sign up for a new bank, if I were just arriving in Italy for the first time, I might consider Unicredit. This is not a sponsorship. This is not, I haven't been paid to say anything. I would say if I were looking for a new bank account, that would probably be the bank I would consider. They have not only a lot of brick and mortar locations, but a lot of ATMs around the country. So worth considering in my opinion. But because this is Italy, very often you'll need to actually make an appointment to open up your bank account. So make sure that you have your fiscal code all ready, and then you can go make your appointment. Maybe you might get lucky and be able to actually get in and see them later on that day or even in that moment, but that's more often than not unlikely that that would happen. Like I was mentioning, for bill paying and paying your rent, you will need to have a bank account. The problem with N26 and PostPay is that these are basically prepaid cards, and if you need to set up a direct debit to pay internet, electricity, water, gas, whatever it might be, those type of cards generally won't be accepted, and they will need, even though you do get an IBAN with those cards, you will need a proper checking account to actually get that in Italy. N26 is based in Germany. PostPay is basically just a prepaid card. They do have bank accounts there, but at Unicredit, you can also get a bank account there. They do have a free option if you sign up online, but if you're not an Italian citizen, or even if you're a dual citizen, that could be a bit tricky. But even they have a cheap account. I don't know if it's like somewhere between like 1 and 3 euros, maximum 5 per month, but I think it's like 2 or 3 euros per month. Don't quote me on that though. But if your money is coming in from the US, you could of course use something like TransferWise to help make that transfer happen. But being able to not bank in Italy is going to be very difficult to make happen. You'll want to have a bank account here because there's a lot that will only be able to be done through an Italian bank account and not through an American bank account. Even if you're going to be renting an apartment, landlords will want to make sure that you have at least a work contract or that they can see money somehow here in Italy. But I've noticed for some Americans with a pension or that gets some sort of money that they can show every month, that some landlords here in Italy will be willing to consider and not be as strict about you needing money here in Italy. That can be tangible, something that if they had to, they could go directly to your bank and start making those withdrawals. They do this in Italy because the way that the law works is that a lot of the rules are in favor of the tenant, and it's very difficult to get somebody out of an apartment, although the laws have been changing and it's become easier, but it's still a headache and a half for the owners because more often than not, they'll still need a lawyer or to go to court or something to be able to make things happen. If you have kids, of course, schools will need to be on your search as well to find out what your kids have to do to make sure that they are at the same level, because Italian schools and American schools are at different levels. Here in Italy, kids do start learning foreign languages much earlier than a lot of kids back in the States do. Kids also have much longer schooling days. So you have to consider, do you want to send them to an Italian school or an international school? But if you're coming out all this way, I can't help but say, like, especially when expats tell me, oh, we're sending our kids to this wonderful American school, this wonderful international school. And these are people who are planning to be here long term. Why are you sending your kid to these type of institutions? I say that because if you're planning to be here long term, then they need to be able to function in this country. And at some of these schools, I've heard, in theory, they teach Italian, but none of the kids can speak Italian. No, I know I don't have kids, and yes, I am judging, but no, I wouldn't necessarily come down your throat if you're telling me that your kids are going to go to an international school, but I can't help but wonder these things. A lot of parents say it's because they want to give their kids the option to go back to America when they go to university or whatnot. But not all kids want to do that, and especially if you're bringing these kids here from a young age, they're going to be more Italian than they are going to be American. Unless they're at an international school, then they're going to be in this kind of odd cultural no man's land. It'll be more difficult for them to integrate into Italian society, more difficult for them to speak Italian, and there'll be a cultural difference and a barrier that will be hard to overcome. So while I might not say that the Italian school system is the best, in some ways, it's a lot more academic, but it's also seems to be a lot more stressful for kids. If maybe the American school system is a bit easier on the kids and your kid just is not the type that really can handle a day that goes from, say, 7:30 or 8 in the morning all until, say, 5 or 6, then maybe the American system or an international system might be a little bit better, but you have to think about the integration because each kid is different, has their own needs about how they need to do things. One other little thing that I'm going to say just before wrapping this video up is I would highly recommend looking at least a few towns. Don't have your heart settled on one city, one town. It might not be quite what you're looking for. And if you look at a couple places, maybe the one place that you thought would be your perfect town may end up being your nightmare town. And another place that maybe you hadn't have thought of might actually be the appropriate place for you to check out and make a life for yourself, or at least attempt to make that happen. So keep an open mind, and I wish you all the best of luck. And if you would like to see more content like this about moving to Italy, Italian dual citizenship, and living life abroad, please be sure to subscribe with that notification bell turned on. And if you could also give this video a like and share it with your friends, that would be greatly appreciated, as it does help out the channel. And of course, if you have anything to say about anything I've said in this video, or any questions about anything in this video or any of my other videos, feel free to leave that down in the comment section below, and maybe your comment or question might become the topic of a future video. Of course, a huge thank you to those of you who've been helping to make these videos possible. And if you would like to help make content like this possible also, you can go to rafaeldifuria.com/Patreon to help on a monthly basis, rafaeldifuria.com/support to help out just one time, or rafaeldifuria.com/NYAG gear for shirts, baby onesies, mugs, and more, like posters, with Italy-centric designs. Thank you all again for joining me on another beautiful Friday night as we count down to 10,000 strong. Thank you guys so much again. Thank you all for watching these videos, being a part of the conversation, and getting involved. It has been really a wonderful journey to get to know you guys, and I look forward to seeing what ends up happening in the future. Of course, as always, I'm Rafael Di Furia, aka Rafi D is me. Thank you for joining me on another beautiful Friday night. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and a fantastic week up ahead. And I will see you probably next Friday night, but let's see. There could be a live stream. Not sure. Follow me on social media. If something's going to happen, I'll make the announcement there. Anyway, see you next Friday night. Later.